السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه وبعد. Returning Ikhwan then back to the advice of Imam Ibnul-Jawzee to his wayward son, the son that he worried about, the son that he saw from him that he was deviating from the path of istiqamah and uprightness. And as we mentioned, Ikhwan, this Imam Ibnul-Jawzee, it was well known that he was considered tremendous in wa'ad and in giving admonition. But he himself, Ikhwan, was likewise well known for reflecting upon himself. And as occurs in a statement, Ikhwan, that he made, he said, لَقَدْ جَلَسْتُ يَوْمًا فرأيت حولي أكثر من 10,000 ما فيهم إلا وقد رق قلبه أو دمعت عينه فقلت لنفسي كيف بك إن نجوا وهلكت. He said that indeed I sat on an occasion and I saw around me some 10,000 people. And there was not one of them except that his heart had been softened and affected by what he has said. Naturally after a lecture or what have you. Or that their eyes were shedding tears. And I said to myself, what will you do? If they are all successful and they're saved and they achieve salvation, and you are destroyed. He said, and so he uttered with his tongue, Ilahi wa Sayyidi, in qadayta alayya bil adhabi ghadan, fala tu'limuhum bi adhabi. He said that if, O my Lord and O my patron, if you decree that I should be punished tomorrow, then do not inform them of my punishment. Siyanatan li karamik, la li ajli. And that is in preservation of your karam, in preservation of your nobility and your generosity, not because of me. لِأَنْ لَا يَقُولُوا عَذَّبَ مَنْ دَلَّ عَلَيْهِ. That the people will not say that he has punished, Allah Azza wa Jal has punished the one that pointed towards him. The one that pointed and instructed the people to turn towards him, that he was punished. And so Imam Ibnul-Jawzee, then he was well known for that wa'ad. And in that which follows from the advice to his son, we see further examples of that. The Imam rahimahullah ta'ala, he continues in advising his son. وَمَنْ تَفَكَّرَ فِي الدُّنْيَا قَبْلَ أَنْ يُوجَدْ رَأَى مُدَّةً طَوِيلًا فَإِذَا تَفَكَّرَ فِيهَا بَعْدَ أَنْ يَخْرُجَ مِنْهَا رَأَى مُدَّةً طَوِيلًا. He said that indeed, the one who reflects upon the dunya, and here he turns the attention of his son to reflecting upon the hereafter. He said that the one who reflects upon the dunya before his existence, his own existence, رَأَى مُدَّةً طَوِيلًا, then he sees that it was and it has been a long period of time. فإذا تفكر فيما أو فيها بعد أن يخرج منها, and if he reflects upon it in that which will occur after he exits it, after he leaves it, رأى مدة طويلة, then he will see that there will be a long period of time, that will continue after his death. وعلم أن اللبث في القبور طويل. And he will know then that his time in the grave will be lengthy. And that, ikhwan, no doubt, if one were to reflect upon those who passed away at the time of Nuh alayhi salatu wassalam, mathalan, or before Nuh, and then reflect upon the amount of time, I mean, naturally we don't know specifics, but the amount of time between Nuh alayhi salatu wassalam and our era now. As the Imam mentions, رَأَى مُدَّةَ طَوِيلًا, and it is a long period of time. And those who have passed away at that time remain in the grave to this day. And so he turns his attention to reflecting upon the fact that he will remain in the grave for a long period. He said, and then reflect upon the fact that Yawm al-Qiyamah is 50,000 years. And then reflect upon the fact that one's existence in Jannah or the Nar will be eternal. And then he turns his attention, after reflecting upon what came before him and what will come after him, reflecting upon his time now. And that is that he says, فَإِذَا عَادَ إِلَى النَّظَرِ فِي مِقْدَارِ بَقَائِهِ فِي الدُّنْيَا فَرَدْنَا 60 سَنَةً مَثَلًا. He said, so if we turn then our attention to his time in the dunya now, and we were to say, for example, that he will live for 60 years, and that no doubt, ikhwan, is, as occurs in the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, the Messenger of Allah, he said, أَعْمَارُ أُمَّتِي بَيْنَ 60 إِلَى 70 سَنَةً, that the average age of my ummah is between 60 and 70 years. وَقَلُّهُمْ مَنْ يَجُوزُ ذَلِكَ, and few of them are those who go past that. And likewise, we have the statement of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, أَعْذَرَ اللَّهُ إِلَى امْرِئٍ أَخَّرَ أَجَلَهُ حَتَّى بَلَغَهُ 60 سَنَةً, that Allah Azza wa Jal has given sufficient excuse to the one who he has delayed taking his life until he reaches 60 years old. And so the one who has 60 years, or has been given 60 years of life, then you have more than the average age, or more than that which you need to reflect upon your existence in the dunya. And so this average age of 60 years, he turns his son to reflecting upon it. He says, so if we were to say then that you were to live for 60 years, he said, فَإِنَّهُ مَضَى مِنْهَا 30 سَنَةً فِي النَّوْمِ. He said that 30 years of that 60 are gone in sleep. Sleep will take up 30 of that 60 years, approximately. He said, وَنَحْوٌ مِّن 15 فِي الصَّبَى. He said, and somewhere in the region of another 15 will be taken up just in your youth, growing, being a child and then a young boy. 15 years or so. And so from the 60 years of average age, remove 45. Ala tul, gone, 45. And then he mentions, فَإِذَا حَسَبَ الْبَاقِي كَانَ أَكْثَرُهُ الشَّهَوَاتِ وَالْمَطَاعِمِ وَالْمَكَاسِبِ. And then if you reflect upon that which remains, which is 15, then the bulk of that will be taken up in shahawat, in pursuing one's desires, in mata'im, food, and in seeking sustenance. فَإِذَا خَلَصَ مَا لِلْآخِرَةِ وَجَدَ فِيهِ مِنَ الرِّيَاءِ وَالْغَفْلَةَ كَثِيرًا. And then if he reflects upon what remains for the hereafter, yani for seeking the hereafter, he will find that a large portion of that which remains for seeking the hereafter will be consumed by riya and by ghafla, by his own heedlessness and him carrying out actions to be seen of the people. That even those actions that are done for the sake of Allah, a portion of them will be taken and consumed in doing acts that he does for the people, that he won't be rewarded for. And everyone falls into something from that. And so this heedlessness and ghafla, it takes up that small amount of time that remains. He said, فَبِمَاذَا تَشْتَرِي الْحَيَاةَ الْأَبَدِيَّةَ وَإِنَّمَا الثَّمَنُ هَذِهِ السَّاعَاتِ. He said, and so with what will you purchase the life of the hereafter? What will you use to exchange for the life of the hereafter when its price are these hours? And so, Ikhwan, if it were just that alone that he wrote in his nasiha for his son, then that would have been yakfi. That would have been sufficient. Write him that, leave him that, and you reflect upon the rest, ya bunay. Then he continues, in order to draw his attention to the fact that even though you've come of age, and even though you're an adult, and you've fallen into this ghafla and this heedlessness, then know that from those who came before you were those who fell into the same, and then took account of themselves and became a'imma. And so he mentions, قد حدثني الشيخ أبو حكيم. And I'm not making it up, إخوان. فقد حدثني الشيخ أبو حكيم. He said, الشيخ أبو حكيم narrated to me. عن قاضي القضاة الشيخ أبي الحسن الدامغاني. He said he narrated from قاضي القضاة, the judge of the judges, Abu al-Hasan al-Damghani, rahimahullah. He said, كنت في سبوتي متشاغلا بالبطالة غير ملتفت إلى العلم. He said, I used to be, when I was young, when I was a youth, I used to be busied in batala. Batala literally means just idleness, worklessness, or as Jamaicans would say, worklessness. Wasting time. Batala. When I was young, then I used to spend my time doing such things. He said, فَأَحْضَرَنِي أَبِي. He said, so my father came to him. And this, Ikhwan, will show the type of wisdom. Sometimes it is not the straight admonition that makes that point or that hits home. Sometimes it is a wisdom or a statement that that adult or that parent or that bigger brother or that elder may use that will bring about the necessary reflection. He said, my father, he came to me, Abu Abdullah, rahimahullah ta'ala, وقال لي يا بني لست أبقى لك أبدا. He said, oh my son, I am not going to remain here for you forever. He said, فخذ 20 درهما أو 20 دينارا عفوا. So take 20 dinars وافتح لك دكان خباز وتكسب. He said, so take these 20 dinars and open for yourself a bakery and make some money. فقلت له ما هذا الكلام. He said, so I said to him, what is this statement what is this speech? قال أو فافتح لك دكان بزاز. He said, oh, okay, open a cloth merchant then. Make some money. فقلت كيف تقول لهذا. He said, so I said to him, how are you going to say that to me? وأنا ابن قاضي القضاة. When I am the son of the judge of judges. He said, يعني the judge of judges Abdullah Damghani. فقال فما أراك تطلب العلم. He said, but I don't see you seeking knowledge. So open a bakery, open a cloth merchant, something like that, make some money. He said, I don't see you seeking knowledge. فقلت اذكر لي الدرس والساعة. He said, so then I said, so mention to me then the dars, يعني when it is and what time. He said, فذكر لي فأقبلت على الاشتغال بالعلم واجتهدت ففتح الله تعالى علي. He said, so he told me, informed me of the time of the dars. He said, and so from that point onwards, I began to busy myself with ilm, with knowledge, and Allah Azza wa Jal opened the way for me. And that Abu Hakeem, he was Ibrahim ibn Dinar al-Nahrawani al-Hanbali, who died in the year 556. He likewise mentions to him that وَحَكَى لِي بَعْضُ أَصْحَابِ أَبِي الْحَلَوَانِ Abi al-Halawani rahimahullah narrated to him, some of his companions narrated to him. He said, Mata abi wa ana ibn ihda wa ishrina sana. He said concerning himself that my father passed away when I was 21 years old. He said, فَكُنْتُ مَوْصُوفًا بِالْبَطَالَةِ. He said, and it was said about me again, similarly, that I was from those who were upon batala, yani idleness. He said, فَأَتَيْتُ أَتَقَاضَى بَعْدَ سُكَانِ الدَّارِ قَدْ وَرَثْتُهَا. He said, and so I went to negotiate with some of the residents of a house that I had inherited, yani from my father. Some of its residents were present within it. I went to speak to them yani about rent or whatever else. He said, فَسَمِعْتُهُمْ يَقُولُونَ جاء المدبر يعني الربيط. He said, and so I heard them saying that the manager's coming, or يعني the landlord's coming, or the letting agent. He said, فقلت لنفسي يقال عني هذا. He said, so I said to myself, they're saying that about me? The manager, the landlord, the letting agent. They're saying that about me? He said, يقال عني هذا فجئت إلى والدتي. And so thereon after I went to my mother, فقلت إذا أردت طلبي فاطلبيني من مسجد الشيخ أبي الخطاب. He said that I said to my mother, if you want me from now on, then you can seek after me and find me in the masjid of Sheikh Abi al-Khattab, who was from the Imam of the Hanabila at that time, the scholar Abu al-Khattab Mahfuz ibn Ahmad ibn Hassan al-Iraqi. He said, so you will find me in the masjid of Sheikh Abi al-Khattab. He said, فَلَازَمْتُهُ فما خرجت إلا إلى القضاء فصرت قاضيا مدة. He said, and so I clung to that dars, and he clung to the sheikh, and I did not leave except in order to judge. And he remained with him until he became a judge. And Ibnul-Jawzee, he mentions there on after, قلت ورأيته أنا وَهُوَ يُفْتِي وَيُنَاذِرُ. He said, and I saw him myself giving fatwa and debating. And I saw him myself as an alim. And that then indicates, ikhwan, that he indicated it doesn't necessitate that an individual starts from the age of 5 and he is tremendous with knowledge and hifd and what have you from the age of 5 years old. And that is the only way that a person can really become an alim. La. He started at 21 years old. So he was an adult, he was a man when he began upon the path of ilm. And so the Imam, he advises his son by way of this and informs him by way of it that look, as again, ikhwan, we see some of the themes that are present within his advice. Look, you started out well because he himself, his son Abu al-Qasim Yusuf Ali, that he himself began as his father and his elder brother started out upon ilm and upon knowledge, seeking knowledge, sitting in the circles of ilm and taking from the scholars of hadith when he was young. And so he already knows the path of talab al-ilm, he's acquainted with it. And then he began to deviate, then he began to come off the rails. And it was said concerning him that he began to walk with and accompany people of debauchery and people of lewdness and what have you, and music and drinking, and other than that, that he truly fell into evil. And so, Ikhwan, he was reminding him of the fact that it doesn't, don't give up hope, because the shaitan may be inspiring you by saying that you're now of age, you're now grown. This ilm is not for you. This is for something for individuals who are young, shabab. And thereafter, Ikhwan, the Imam, he reminds him concerning some of the wajibat from Fajr and the establishment of the Salah, and similarly the affair of ad-duha and some of the nawafil salawat, and busying oneself with that. And then he continues to advise with another affair, and that is that he says, وَعَلَيْكَ بِالْعُزْلَةِ فَهِيَ أَصْلُ كُلِّ خَيْرٍ وَاحْذَرْ مِنْ جَلِيسِ السُّوءِ وَلْيَكُنْ جُلَسَاؤُكَ الْكُتُبِ وَالنَّظَرْ فِي سِيرِ السَّلَفِ. He said that you should cling, O my son, to uzla. And this uzla is a term that was used by the scholars for abstinence from the people. Uzla, some of the scholars, Ikhwan, they wrote books around the topic. Ibn Abi Dunya and others wrote books around this topic of uzla. And that was something, Ikhwan, that the scholars who wrote around zuhud as well, they included ordinarily a chapter in their books of zuhud and abstention from the dunya concerning uzla. This uzla, again, to abstain from the people generally, and that a person takes to seclusion and being alone. Of course, Ikhwan, the origin and the asl is if there is a jama'ah, and if the people of sunnah and khair are present, then the best affair is that a person clings to the people, remains with them. As the Messenger ﷺ, he mentioned that the best of the people are those who stay with the people and bear their faults, and not those who abandon them and don't bear their faults, and not patient with their faults. So the best of the people who are those who remain in jama'ah, and you're all acquainted with the hadith of Hudhayfa radiyallahu anhu, كنت أسأل أو كان الناس يسألون رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن الخير وكنت أسأله عن الشر مخافة أن يدركني. That the people, they used to ask the Messenger ﷺ about good, and I used to ask about evil, fearing that I would fall into it. And towards the end of the hadith, the Messenger ﷺ advised him to stay with the jama'ah and their Imam. So that is the origin and the asl. And that uzla and abstinence and seclusion from the people does not occur except when there is nothing but shar, and Ahlul Sunnah and the Jama'ah are not present. That one abandons that, refrains from that, even if one has to hold on and bite onto the root of a tree and death finds him in that state. The origin is that one does not resort to uzla except when there are nothing but evil companions or evil individuals to accompany you. At that time and at that case, then no doubt uzla is better for you. And so, bearing in mind that the advice was to his son who now had evil companions, his advice then revolved around the fact that uzla and seclusion and just being alone with your books is better than these bad companions that you have. And so he mentioned عليك بالعزلة فهي أصل كل خير وَاحْذَرْ مِنْ جَلِيسِ السُّوءِ. He said, cling to seclusion, because it is the origin of every good. And be aware and cautious of evil companions. And let your companions be al-kutub, books, and looking into the path of the Salaf. And then he informed him of the fact that, look, knowledge, ilm, is what has raised the lowest and the most lowly of the people. And then he mentions some examples of that. From the examples that he mentions is that he mentions the affair of Ata ibn Abi Rabah. He said, كان عطاء ibn Abi Rabah أسود اللون مستوحش الخلقة. He said that Ata ibn Abi Rabah He was a black man who had a frightening appearance. And though he was, of course, being a black man, there's nothing wrong with that. But the frightening appearance, naturally, that's the issue, ikhwan. Concerning the tarjama of Ata, it is said concerning him, Kana Ata, Aswad, A'war, Aftash, Ashal, A'raj, Thumma Ami. That he, rahimahullah ta'ala, he was black, he was an ex-slave, he was black, he was bus-eyed, and he had a defect in one of his eyes. He was aftas, he was snub-nosed. He was ashal, suffered from something from paralysis. He was a'raj, he was a cripple. And then eventually, towards the end of his life, he became fully blind. And he had a frightening appearance. And so, this Imam al-Dhahabi though says concerning him, وَكَانَ ثِقَةً فَقِيهًا عَالِمًا كَثِيرَ الْحَدِيثِ وَكَانَ مِنْ أَعْلَمِ النَّاسِ بِالْمَنَاسِكِ. That he though was a thiqa, trustworthy, faqih, a jurist, كثير الحديث, he was well known to be plentiful in the knowledge of hadith. And he was from the greatest of the people in the knowledge of the rites of Hajj. He, no doubt, was referred to as being from the Sayyid Tabi'een, as we have with Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib. Similarly, Ata ibn Abi Rabah is referred to as Sayyid Tabi'een, as from the leaders of the Tabi'een. So Rabah, he mentioned كان عطاء بن أبي رباح أسود اللون مستوحش الخلقة وجاء إليه سليمان بن مالك وهو الخليفة ومعه ولدا فجلسوا يسألونه عن المناسك فحدثهم وهو معرض عنهم بوجهه. He said that Sulaiman ibn Abd al-Malik, who was the Khalifa at that time, came to him with his sons. And they sat with him, asking him concerning the rites of Hajj. And so he narrated to them and informed them. But as he informed them and as he narrated to them, he was turning away from them with his face. So he narrated to them, but he wasn't looking at them. And it was something, ikhwan, that was seen to be aib at the time of the Salaf, that a person was seen to be close with the khulafa and with the leaders and with the rulers. It was something that the Salaf would dispraise. Now, they didn't speak against the rulers. They didn't make inkar against them and they didn't revolt against them or khuruj. But as far as having a close relationship with them and being seen to be so, then we find that the Salaf, ikhwan, it was something that they looked down upon. To the extent, ikhwan, that we had some of the great scholars of hadith, because of the fact that the people presumed that they were with the rulers or spies for the rulers, some of them were rejected from the circles of knowledge. Al-Imam al-Nasa'i, mathalan. Imam al-Nasa'i was well known concerning him that he, though he was an imam, he was from the few of the people of hadith that was wealthy and used to show his wealth. And so he would dress well, he would smell good, and he would look wealthy. And so from his shuyukh, Al-Harith al-Miskin, we had those who, Al-Harith al-Miskin, who had bad suspicion concerning him and repelled him from the dars. And so Al-Imam al-Nasa'i, and you'll read in the Asanid of Sunan al-Nasa'i, and remember when we used to study Sunan al-Nasa'i with Shaykh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad, that you will come across Imam al-Nasa'i narrating from Harith al-Miskin, but when he narrates from him, he says, حدثنا حارث المسكين أو حدث حارث المسكين وأنا أسمع. That Harith al-Miskin narrated and I was listening. And that is because of the fact that he used to listen to the dars outside of the masjid. because he wasn't allowed inside. And so he used to listen outside and used to take the hadith down. And so when he narrates from Al-Harith al-Miskin, he will say, Harith al-Miskin narrated and I was listening. In any case, Ikhwan, when Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik, the Khalifa, he came to take from Ata narrated to him, but the while he was turning away from him. And the Khalifa, he said to his sons, قُومَا وَلَا تَنْيَا وَلَا تَكَاسَلَ فِي طَلَبِ الْعِلْمِ. He said, stand, pay attention, and don't shy away, and don't be lazy in seeking knowledge from this great Imam. He mentioned, وَلَا أَنْسَى ذَلُّنَا بَيْنَ يَدَيْ هَذَا الْعَبْدِ الْأَسْوَدِ. He said, and I will never forget our humility, the humility that we had when we sat before that black slave. That, brothers and sisters, no doubt, was though Ata ibn Abi Rabah, though he was a slave, he was raised with ilm. Similarly, from those who were slaves, we have the likes of Al-Hasan al-Basri, who was a slave. We have the likes of Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib, Ibn Sirin, Muhammad ibn Sirin, the great Imam from among the Tabi'een, who was a slave. And in fact, Muhammad ibn Sirin and Hasan al-Basri, it was said that they, both of them, were nurtured under the same individual as young slaves. They together were nurtured and they were used in the service of the same individual as young slaves. Likewise, Makhul from among the Tabi'een. And so he advises his son saying, وَكَانَ الْحَسَنْ مَوْلَى أَيِّ مَمْلُوكًا وَابْنِ سِيرِينَ وَمَكْهُولٍ وَخَلْقٌ كَثِيرٌ إِنَّمَا شُرِفُوا بِالْعِلْمِ وَالتَّقْوَى. He said that indeed Al-Hasan, he was a mawla. Eventually they were freed. He said he was a slave. And likewise Ibn Sirin. And similarly Makhul. And many, he said, khalqun kathir, many. But they were raised with knowledge and with taqwa. And so he, again, instructing and highlighting to his son that, look, it is knowledge that will raise you, regardless of the station that you have. Regardless of how lowly you may be looked upon among the people, it is knowledge that will raise you. And then he went on to instruct him concerning him taking from the dunya and being from among those who nurture and cultivate themselves upon being satisfied with little. He mentions, rahimahullah ta'ala, وَاجْتَهِدْ يَا بُنَيْ في صيانة عرضك من التعرض للطلب الدنيا والذل لأهلها. He said, strive, O my son, in preserving your honor from turning towards seeking the dunya and lowering yourself and having humility in front of its people. Have satisfaction and you will be noble. فقد قيل من قنع بالخبز والبقل لم يستبعده أبدا يستعبده أبدا أو أحدا. He said that indeed the one, it was said in the past that the one who satisfies with bread and baqal, bread and something minuscule from vegetables and small food, then no one will be able to enslave him. That if you are and you nurture yourself upon sufficing with little, You're from those people who can just take some naan and dip it in some salad. Wabas, and suffice with that, then no one will enslave you. If you can satisfy with bread and something small to dip that bread in, and you're good with that, then who can enslave you? You will be bound by who? Because nothing from the dunya interests you. And that is how we should nurture our children. Nurture them upon sufficiency, upon satisfaction with qaleel, satisfaction with little. And when we say nurture your children upon that, that is nurture them upon it in statement and let them learn that from you. Because you, Ikhwan, and your example is for our children the greatest teacher. That he will learn from you and he'll follow you. And she will observe you. And so do not be from among those who say, be satisfied. Why do you want more? But then they see Abi and they see Ummi wanting and desiring more. Let them learn from you that sufficiency. Let them observe that from you. And they will grow and be men and women who will turn back and look back and say, my father, subhanallah, that was a rajul. My mother, subhanallah, mujahid. That I remember when they used to do such and such. And I remember when they used to suffice with such and such. And I remember when my father, he took such and such. And we all ate from it. And that was sufficient. Let your children grow and remember the type of men and women that you were. And so he mentions, وَمِنَ الْأَعْرَابِ وَمَرَّ أَعْرَابِيٌّ عَلَى الْبَصْرَةِ فقال من سيد هذه البلدة فقيل له الحسن البصري فقال وبما سادهم قالوا لأنه استغنى عن دنياهم وافتقروا إلى علمه. He said that on an occasion a Bedouin, he passed by Basra and said, who is the leader of this place? And who is the Sayyid? Who is its master and who is its leader? And so it was said, Al-Hasan al-Basri. And so he asked, with what thing did he become its leader? And the response that was given to him was that it was said that due to the fact that he abstained from their dunya, and because of the fact that they were in dire need of his knowledge. He became the leader of them because he had no need for their dunya. And they had every need for the knowledge that he possessed. And so here the Imam, he goes on to mention and discuss the affair of leading by example. He said, اعلم واعلم يا بني أن أبي كان موسرا. He mentions that my father, Bunay, yani your grandfather, that he was one that was wealthy. He said, وَخَلَفَ أُلُوفًا مِنَ الْمَالِ. And he left behind thousands in terms of wealth. He said, and so when I came of age, I was given 20 dinars and 2 houses. He said, and it was said to me, this is your portion of the inheritance. He said, so I took the dananir, I took those dinars and I bought books. He said, and then I sold the 2 houses and I spent that which I gained from them in seeking or in the path of seeking knowledge. He said, and nothing from wealth remained with me. And so it was not said concerning him that was a foolish thing to do. That was that wise, Yahi. In fact, he's making mention of it as an example to his son. He said, so I did all of these things. You don't remember, you was young or maybe not even born. But let me tell you about me. And so he said, from all of that wealth that he spent on either books or in the path of knowledge, he said, nothing from wealth remains with me. He said, وَمَا ظَلَّ أَبُوكَ فِي طَلَبِ الْعِلْمِ قَطْ. He said, and your father has never been humiliated in the path of seeking knowledge, ever. And he has had no need to go around and to beg of the people like others who give admonition. He said, never either did he send anyone to seek something for him. Yani, I didn't do that, ever. He said, and the affairs I have constantly, throughout my life, been in credit. I've constantly been in credit. I've never been in debt with anyone. And then he mentioned the statement of Allah, وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبْ. Whosoever fears Allah, He makes a way out for him, and He provides for him from means that he will not perceive. And again, ikhwan, we see the same theme, these themes running through his advice. Follow my example. And he was not from those who would say to their son, يعني bilisan al-hal, do as I say, don't do as I do. Rather, he led by example. Then he went on to mention to him the affair of taqwa. And that taqwa, it is a store. And it stores every form of khair. And then he went on to mention an example of how, by way of taqwa, an individual is raised. He mentioned that indeed the one who observes and guards the boundaries of Allah, Allah Azza wa Jal will guard him and protect him. And he mentioned that the Messenger of Allah said to Ibn Abbas, radiyallahu anhuma, ihfadillah yahfadhk, that be mindful of your duty to Allah, observe the rights of Allah Azza wa Jal, take care of that, protect that, and Allah Azza wa Jal will protect you. Do so and you will find Allah before you. He said, know, O my son, that Yunus alayhi salatu wassalam, and listen to the beautiful example that he strikes here, ikhwan. He said, Yunus alayhi salatu wassalam, when his stores had within them khair, and in that which he had within himself was taqwa. And so his stores had within them khair. Naja biha min ash-shidda. During his time of distress and difficulty, he was saved by way of it. فقال الله عز وجل فلولا أنه كان من المسبحين للبث في بطنه إلى يوم يبعثون. He said that Allah Azza wa Jal said concerning him, if it were not for the fact that he was from the musabbihin, from those who make tasbih of Allah Azza wa Jal. As we know, the dua of Yunus alayhi salatu wasalam when he was in the belly of the hut was لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وإني كنت من الظالمين. Attesting to the tawheed of Allah Azza wa Jal, declaring Allah free of imperfections, and then acknowledging his sin, acknowledging his wrong. And that was by him leaving those individuals who Allah Azza wa Jal had instructed him to give da'wah to and to call before Allah had permitted him to do so. And so Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned, if he were not from the musabbihin, if it were not for the fact that he made that tasbih of Allah, he would have remained within it until the day that they are brought forward, and until Yawm al-Qiyamah. He said, so Allah Azza wa Jal, because of the fact that the stores of Yunus were khair, during his time of distress, Allah Azza wa Jal saved him. But then on the other end of the spectrum, Amma Fir'aun, bearing in mind, Ikhwan, they were both in the same situation. That they were both drowning. That they were both beneath the sea. Both beneath the waves. In dire need of salvation and help. But when Yunus alayhi salatu wasalam, when his dakhira and when his stores were khair, then he was saved by way of that in his time of distress. He said, وَأَمَّا فِرْعَوْنَ لَمَّا تَكُنْ دَخِيرَةُ أو لم تكن أو لما تكن دخيرة خير لم يجد في شدته مخلصا فقيل له الآن وقد عصيت. So when his dakhira, when his stores were not good, yani they were shar, then during his time of distress, he was not saved. In fact, it was said to him, now, after you have disobeyed and been disobedient for this period, al-an, is it now? Is it now you know good? And so, on the basis, Ikhwan, of these pieces of evidence and these verses, he highlights to his son the fact that it is by way of taqwa and fearing Allah Azza wa Jal in public and in private that you will be saved during your time of distress. And so it doesn't matter what you display to the people. It is your reality. And that, Ikhwan, is a potent message. It is not what you display to the people. It is not what the people see of you. But it is your reality. It is your reality. And your true state with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so it is that taqwa and that fear of Allah Azza wa Jal that will cause a person to be saved. And then he went on to mention to him various acts of good. And know that from the acts of good he mentions are the lowering of the gaze from that which is haram, holding your tongue from speaking without necessity, similarly observing the boundaries of Allah Azza wa Jal and giving precedence to Allah Azza wa Jal over one's desires. And he mentions a dream of Sufyan al-Thawri. And Sufyan al-Thawri, rahimahullah ta'ala, that he mentions on an occasion that he saw in a dream that it was said to him, what has Allah, or how has Allah, or what has Allah done with you? He said, that is rather that Sufyan was seen in a dream. And it was said to him, what has Allah done with you? And so he said, ما كان إلا وضعت في اللهد فإذا أنا بين يدي رب العالمين فدخلت فإذا أنا بقائل يقول سفيان فهو بقائل يقول سفيان قلت سفيان. He said that it was said, or that individual that saw Sufyan in a dream, that he said to him, what has Allah done with you, yani after your death? And so he responded by saying that indeed I was placed in my grave. And when I was in front of the Lord of all the worlds, I heard someone say to me, Sufyan, and I responded, Sufyan. And so it was said to me, تذكر يوما آثرت الله على هواك. He said, do you remember one day that you gave precedence to Allah over your own desires? One day that rather than preferring yourself, you were concerned with Rabbil Alameen and with Allah Azza wa Jal, rather than pleasing yourself. It was said to him, do you remember doing that one day? And so he responded by saying, Naam. And so he said, and so then a sprinkling and a breeze came upon me from Jannah. And so, Ikhwan, the affair then of this advice, no doubt it continues. He advises him, and Ikhwan, we are having to miss out some of the beautiful pieces of advice due to time. But he advises him likewise by saying, اعلم أني قد تصفحت التابعين ومن بعدهم فما رأيت أحظى بالكمال من أربعة أنفس. He said, no, that I have observed the biographies of the tabi'een, and I have not found from among them those who were more complete and had a greater portion of completeness than 4 individuals. He mentions Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib, al-Hasan al-Basri, وسفيان الثوري وأحمد بن حنبل. That is the tabi'een and those who came after them. Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib, al-Hasan al-Basri, Sufyan al-Thawri, and Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Maybe Ikhwan will discuss their biographies in some of the khutab and some of the sermons that are to come, inshaAllah. He said, وَقَدْ كَانُوا رِجَالًا. Again, Ikhwan, he mentions that they were men. They were men. They were people, Ikhwan, who, when one studies their biographies and what they had from knowledge and action and sacrifice and discipline in their lives, they were men. And that, Ikhwan, no doubt, is something that our Shaykhana Shaykh Rabi' Ibn Hadi, he constantly used to say, Ikhwan, and advise us in the various sittings in the durus, in his home, in the various sittings, Ikhwan, through the years that we spent with him in Medina, and then the visitations in Mecca, that he constantly used to say, and still does, that أيها الإخوة هذه الدعوة تحتاج رجال. That this da'wah requires men. It requires men. And it does not require, Ikhwan, boys, children, and immature, fickle, shallow individuals. La. Men. Rijal. People who are thick-skinned, who adorn themselves with ilm and with action and with suluk and with akhlaq. Men. And the sooner we realize that reality, the better. Then maybe we will not be so easily affected by the foolishness that we hear. And by the videos that we click upon. And by the little texts that we receive. And by the whispers that come to us. Men, Ikhwan. And that, no doubt, is from the best of the pieces of advice that one can give to his son. Teach him to be a man. As Imam Zuhri rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentioned, علم الحديث ذكر يحبه الذكور من الرجال ويكرهه إناثهم. He said that the knowledge of hadith is a male. It is loved by the males from among the men. And it is hated by the effeminate ones. That, no doubt, Ikhwan, is the case with Salafiyah. dhakar. It is loved by the males among the men, hated by the effeminate ones. Those that resemble women, with no disrespect to the sisters. Those that resemble women. Well, isn't it this and isn't it that? And didn't such and such say this and didn't that one say the third? Ya akhi, subhanallah. Kun rajul. Be a man upon this da'wah. Look back at the Sahaba. Did we see this foolishness among them? Did we see this fickle, shallow behavior among them? Did we see these tinny attitudes among them? Or did we see that they were men? And they led Ikhwan, being Rijal. And they led the Ummah of Muhammad with this rujula. Men. Then he continues with his advice, advising him with various writings and various books that he himself had authored. His book of tafsir, his book in tarikh, his summary of the Musnad of Imam Ahmad. And he mentions numerous volumes that I read this in 20 volumes and that in 20 volumes and the Tahdhib of the Musnad in 20 volumes, mentioning and highlighting to him the striving of your father with the knowledge and with the ilm. Be like me. Again, Ikhwan, showing the affair of leading with example. And then he advised him with memorization, with hifd, alayka bil hifd. وَإِنَّمَا الْحِفْظُ رَأْسِ الْمَالِ. He said, cling to memorization because it is your capital. And as the Salaf of this ummah used to say, knowledge is that which you bring into the toilet with you. Shma'na. That which is in your head and in your heart. Because your books and your kutub, you don't bring it into the toilet with you. Ilm is that which you bring into that which goes into the toilet with you. And some of the Salaf, they used to say that ilm is hifd. Ilm is memorization. Of course, it is not all of ilm. Because the other half of ilm is at-tafaqquh wal-fahm. Is knowledge and understanding. We have seen many examples of individuals who have been destroyed because of having hifd alone and no fahm, no understanding. But your ra'smal, your capital is hifd. Is that which you remember and that which you have with you from the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He mentions, and then you should be one that returns constantly back to Allah and know that Allah Azza wa Jal, that He gives and He reciprocates to the one who carries out, or the one who is true to Him and true with Him. And he mentioned the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, in tansurullaha yansurkum. If you aid Allah, then Allah Azza wa Jal will aid and help you. And the statement of Allah, فَاذْكُرُونِي أَذْكُرْكُمْ. Remember me, and I will remember you. And the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, أَوْفُوا بِأَهْدِي أُوفِ بِأَهْدِكُمْ. Carry out my covenant, or your covenant with me, and I will fulfill my covenant with you. And Allah Azza wa Jal, He makes mention of those affairs throughout His book. Carry out that which I have commanded you, and I will give you such and such. And so Allah Azza wa Jal, Ikhwan, in these verses indicates the reward of the one who carries out and who acts and is true to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he makes mention, Ikhwan, of the dangers of acting without knowledge. He said, وَإِيَّاكَ أَن تَتَشَاغَلْ بِالتَّعَبُّدِ مِنْ غَيْرِ الْعِلْمِ. Don't busy yourself with worship without knowledge. And you don't be an ignorant worshipper. Be from among those who worship with knowledge, or upon action, but that action is based upon knowledge, not ignorance. And not that I heard somewhere one time, and I believe, and I think it was, and I'm sure it's something like that. Worship upon ilm. And have certainty in the actions that you carry out. Certainty in those acts of ibadah. He said, وحاسب نفسك عند كل نظرة وكلمة وخطوة. He said, and take yourself to account with every look and with every statement and with every step that you take. Constantly take yourself to account. And then he went on to advise him in terms of acting upon knowledge. وَمَتَى لَمْ يَعْمَلْ الْوَاعِظْ بِعِلْمِهِ زَلَّتْ مَوْعِدَتَهُ عَنِ الْقُلُوبِ. When the one who gives admonition doesn't act upon his knowledge, then his admonition falls from the heart. It has no effect upon the heart. And so he was advising him with the importance of being one that advises and acts upon his knowledge. And let that be known, that he is not just one that speaks. He is not just one that gives good sermon, but we see no ta'alluq and no connection with Allah Azza wa Jal. We don't see him being a man of religion. Rather, let there be speech and action. And when we look at the Messenger alayhi salatu wassalam, we see speech and action. The Sunnah, the Messenger alayhi salatu wassalam, alongside giving the companions sermon and teaching them, we see that he used to deal with them, that he was of good character, that they used to love him, that they didn't know which was more beautiful, the face of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the full moon or the face of the Messenger alayhi salatu wassalam. They were close to him, used to love him. And so let your speech be that which is adorned with action. And then he said that you should not act without niyyah. Don't walk without niyyah. Don't eat without niyyah. And by way of that, advising him with the importance of having a niyyah and having good intention in everything that we do. And then he advised him with the affair of one's time and not to waste time. And that is that he mentions وَكُنْ حُسْنُ الْمُدَارَةِ لِلْخَلْقِ مَعَ شِدَّةِ الْإِعْتِزَالِ عَنْهُمْ. And we're trying, Ikhwan, to reach the end of his pieces of advice. So be patient, inshallah, with me, Ikhwan. Jazakallah khair. He said, and be a person who has good mudara. Good mudara is that a person, it is not flattery, which is al-mudahana. Al-mudara is to have good dealings and good interaction with the people. Have affability with them. Is good in dealing with them. While at the same time, shiddatul i'tizali anhum. While at the same time, refrain from them. And that is, don't be one that is always mixing with them. He said, فَإِنَّ الْعُزْلَ رَاحَ مِنْ خُلَطَاءِ السُّوءِ وَمُبْقِيَةٌ لِلْوَقَارِ. He said, because this i'tizal, it causes and it gives you rest from having bad companions. And it causes the awe and the reverence that the people have for you to remain. Anyone who mixes with them too much, mixes with the people too much, then his station and their view of him, it begins to fall. And so he's protected by way of that from evil companions. And then towards the end of his pieces of advice, he advises him with the following. وَأَدِّ إِلَى كُلِّ ذِي حَقٍّ حَقَّهُ مِنْ زَوْجَةٍ وَوَلَدٍ وَقَرَابَةٍ. And give every possessor of a right his right. And that is whether one's wife, or whether one's child, or whether one's relative. And that is again him nurturing upon being a man. One that takes care of his responsibilities. Be that type of child. Be that type of young man. Concern yourself with taking care of responsibilities. Don't be foolish. And then he mentioned وراعي عواقب الأمور. يعني advice والله عظيمة جدا جدا. نصيحة عظيمة جدا. He said, and look towards the outcome of affairs. Reflect upon, yani throughout your life, reflect upon the outcomes of affairs. And that is by way of that statement, he was advising him, don't be a sporadic, reactionary type character. Take time out, reflect, think before you act. Think about the awaqib al-umur. Think about the outcomes of affairs. Don't be sporadic. He said, and cling to patience in every single thing that you desire and that which you dislike. Be patient. He said, وَإِن وَجَدْتَ مِن نَفْسِكَ غَفْلَةً فَاحْمِلْهَا إِلَى الْمَقَابِرِ وَذَكِّرْهَا قُرْبَ الرَّحِيلِ. He said, and whenever your soul is overtaken by heedlessness, whenever you forget your reality, and that is something that is easy to occur here, ikhwan. And that we hear, we know that we're Muslim, ikhwan, but subhanallah, some of us, especially the youth, it is as though they would much prefer to be gangbangers and following these fools than to be upon the path of the Sahaba and the Tabi'een and the Atba' al-Tabi'een and the A'immatul Kiram. Gangbangers and rap singers and money makers. So when you forget yourself, he mentions فَاحْمِلْهَا إِلَى الْمَقَابِرِ. Then take yourself to the graveyard. وَذَكِّرْهَا قُرْبَ الرَّحِيلِ. And remind your soul with the closeness of its journey. Remind your soul of the fact that you're soon to make that journey. You're soon to leave. And then, ikhwan, after giving him that tremendous advice, he ends his piece of advice, ikhwan, by saying and reminding him of the fact that you should think about your affairs, arrange your affairs well, do not be wasteful, protect and preserve your wealth, do not fall into debt, and do not be from among those people that are in need of the people. And then he seals it by reminding him of the fact that you are not these riffraff. You're not these riffraff. You're different. He mentions, Ya Bunay, وَاعْلَمْ أَنَّنَا مِنْ أَوْلَادِ أَبِي بَكْرٍ الصِّدِّيقِ رضي الله عنه وأبونا القاسم محمد بن عبد الرحمن ابن أبي بكر ابن محمد ابن أبي بكر رضي الله عنه. He said, remember the fact, O my son, that you are from the children of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. And that his lineage, reminding him of the fact that his lineage goes back to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu. Because of the fact that his lineage, ikhwan, was Abu al-Faraj, Abdul Rahman ibn Ali ibn Muhammad, ibn Ali ibn Ubaidillah ibn Abdullah, ibn Hamad ibn Ahmad ibn Muhammad ibn Ja'far, ibn Abdullah ibn al-Qasim ibn al-Nadhr ibn al-Qasim ibn Muhammad, ibn Abdullah ibn Faqih, Abdul Rahman ibn Faqih al-Qasim ibn Muhammad, ibn Abi Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu. That was his lineage. And so he reminded his son finally, don't forget the fact that you are from the children of Abu Bakr, yani you're of noble lineage. He mentions, and if you wish to study from our forefathers, the likes of Al-Qasim and Muhammad, then return back to the book that I authored, Sifatul Safwa, yani a book that he gathers the biographies of the A'imma. And then he mentions, ikhwan, ثم تشاغل سلفنا بالتجارة والبيع والشراء. Mention the fact that our Salaf, they were people who involved themselves with the normal affairs. He said, don't forget the fact that our Salaf, and I'm not saying to you abstain from the dunya completely and have no connection with the dunya, la. He said, remember our Salaf, they busied themselves with trade and with buying and selling. فما كان من المؤخرين من رزق همة في طلب العلم غيري. That our Salaf, that is from our lineage, there were those who after that noble initial first period, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and his son, after that initial period, then our Salaf, in terms of our lineage, there were those who busied themselves with trade and what have you. Up until our time, there was no one between us and them that busied themselves with knowledge other than us. He says, so remember that fact. وَقَدْ آلَ الْأَمْرُ إِلَيْكَ. And so the affair, he mentions, returns back to you. Remember the fact, Ikhwan, that at the time of writing the Risala, he was the last of his sons. And so he wrote the Risala, and in its beginning, he mentioned that I write this to you as an advice, hoping that Allah will leave for me an offspring that will be a righteous khalaf, a righteous offspring to leave behind him. And so he mentioned that between that early era, that early period from our lineage, going back to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, between them and us, no one has busied themselves with knowledge other than me. And now you. He said, وَقَدْ آلَ الْأَمْرُ إِلَيْكَ. And so now the affair, it lies upon you. He said, فَاجْتَهِدْ أَنْ لَا تُخَيَّبْ ظَنِّي فِيكَ فِيمَا رَجَوْتُهُ فِيكَ وَلَكَ وَقَدْ أَسْلَمْتُكَ إِلَى اللَّهِ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى وَإِيَّاهُ أَسْأَلْ أَنْ يُوَفِّقَكَ لِلْعِلْمِ وَالْعَمَلِ. He said, and so now, do not let or don't spoil the feeling and the thoughts that I have of you. He mentions that indeed, do not spoil the feelings and the thoughts that I have of you and for you, the aspirations that I have for you. And I have returned your affair now back to Allah. And it is Him that I ask to give you success to knowledge and action. Ultimately, after all of my advice, then I know the affair lies with Allah Azza wa Jal. It is Him that truly guides the hearts. He said, وَهَذَا قَدْرْ اجْتِهَادِي فِي وَصِيَّتِي وَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ الْعَلِيِّ الْعَظِيمِ وَالْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ الْمَزِيدِ الْحَامِدِينَ وَصَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَى سَيِّدِنَا مُحَمَّدٍ وَعَلَى آلِهِ وَصَحْبِهِ وَسَلَّمَ. He said, and this is my lot in terms of my striving to leave you an advice and my wasiyah. He said, and there is no power or might except with Allah Azza wa Jal al-Ali al-Azim. And so all praise is due to Allah, and the peace and blessings of Allah Azza wa Jal be upon Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. And so, Ikhwan, I'm sure you would agree with me that the advice of this alim and this father to his son was from the most tremendous pieces of advice that you possibly will read of a father to his son. And should suffice any father as it should suffice any son and any child. And so though it was written by Ibnul-Jawzee to his son, it is something, Ikhwan, and these pieces of advice and these themes that are present within this advice, one should remember them and utilize them with his children and with her children. Advise one's offsprings with that. And so what then, Ikhwan, would you believe, do you believe would be the outcome of the child and the son that receives this noble advice? What would be, and what do you believe and perceive his outcome would be? And what is it, Ikhwan, that occurred with this son of al-Imam Ibnul-Jawzee. شو رأيكم؟ Anybody? Inshallah, goodness. His son Al-Qasim Yusuf Ali, after the advice, he became worse. To the extent that when the Imam, he was put on the trial by the Khalifa and he was imprisoned, he was from those who used to incite the people against his father. يعني أخذه الكبر. He became worse. He would incite the Khalifa against his father and people, incite individuals against him. And he continued upon his life of lewdness and debauchery to the extent that his father, Ibn al-Jawzi, he made hajar of him. He boycotted him after that. And it was said, Ikhwan, that the affair became so bad that on an occasion when Imam Ibn al-Jawzee was asleep, he snuck into the library of his father and he stole his books and sold them for a pittance. And it is not known that he rectified himself after that until the day that he died. And that, Ikhwan, will indicate to you the fact that the affairs, Ikhwan, are in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That we may strive with our children and with our offsprings. We may instruct them. And we may aid them. And give them as much support as we possibly can. But no, oh father, no, oh mother, that the affair ultimately is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is Him that we ask for tawfiq for our children. But Ikhwan, the end of that affair is not all doom and gloom. Because Allah Azza wa Jal, after him, blessed him with another son. And that other son, Yusuf, this son, Qasim Ali, after him, he was given Yusuf Muhyiddin, who became the Imam that he hoped this son would be. And who in actuality was the cause of him being released from prison. And that ultimately it was him that benefited from the advice of his father. And he became such an example that on the basis of his example, the Khalifa, he saw that the father of this noble Imam who was imprisoned, yani Ibn al-Jawzee, that he should be released on account of his son. And so Ibn al-Jawzee used to love that son who was some 30 years younger than the son Al-Qasim Ali. He used to love this son Yusuf. And it was said so much so that when he would recite the Quran, he would avoid Surah Yusuf. He would do a khatma and complete the Quran, but he would avoid Surah Yusuf, fearing that it would occur, or that which happened to Yusuf would occur to him. He loved him so much that he wrote a book that revolved around the sittings that he had, while the two of them used to revise, him and his father, Yusuf and his father, that they would go over knowledge together. Even though his father was an elderly man and Yusuf was younger, they would go over knowledge together. And he wrote a book in that regard. Just as Imam Ibnul-Jawzee, his book Sayyid al-Khatir, or the Hunting for Thoughts, if you like, in a rough translation, was a book that he wrote, Ikhwan, when he used to, every night when he would, and just to let you know the nature of these ai every night as he would drop to sleep, when he would lay down, as he was falling to sleep, issues would come to his head, masail, thoughts, things related to how this text works and is understood in the light of another text. And so he would rise prior to him going to sleep and pen down those thoughts that he would have. And he would do that every night until he had this book, Sayyid al-Khatir. And all of them, the whole book, were just those thoughts that used to come to his head as he would drop to sleep. And likewise, he had a book entitled Al-Majalis Al-Yusufiyya, the Yusufi sittings. And those were the sittings that he would have wherein him and his other son Yusuf, they would sit, go over knowledge, revise, and they would pen down benefits that they would conclude from those sittings. And so he entitled that book Al-Majalis Al-Yusufiyya. And thus, Ikhwan, Allah Azza wa Jal blessed him, though his aspirations were to have a son that would inherit from him and that would be a good khalaf. Allah Azza wa Jal ultimately blessed him with that, but not with the boy that he thought that it would be. And that, brothers and sisters, in that is no doubt a benefit and a dars and a lesson for each and every one of us. May Allah Azza wa Jal bless us with goodly offspring. That will be the coolness of our eyes. That will be upon righteous knowledge and action. And that will be a good khalaf and good individuals to leave behind us, supplicating for us and asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for us and themselves the good of the hereafter, as they ask themselves or for themselves for the good of the dunya. نسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى أن يوفقنا وإياكم لما يحبه ويرضاه وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد. And we thank Ikhwan, the brothers and sisters. We're going to round up on that note, Ikhwan. That was the last of the sittings for this conference. We thank the brothers and the sisters who are taking the time out to come. Again, Ikhwan, it has been, as always, a pleasure to sit, Ikhwan, in these few moments that we have together. We don't do it much, but that we sit together, Ikhwan, Ahlus Sunnah, loving each other for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, coming together, Ikhwan, to at least benefit from our company if we haven't benefited anything new from that which we hear. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to bless and reward all of those who have attended and who have participated in any way, shape or form. وجزاكم الله خيرا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.